You're such an asshole.
Hey everybody, the old captain here. We have a request for asshole consulting, and it's a Clarey Test request. You wonder what the Clarey Test is. The Clarey Test is that 4-question test. I'm sure most of you know, but in case somebody's new, I'll explain it very quickly. And these are 4 questions I use to ask myself, saying, hey, do I trust this person in terms of politics? This doesn't mean that it's a for sure 100% test, like, oh God, if they pass, yes, I trust them, or oh God, they're horrible, they failed. But it's just a good litmus test as to whether or not you should trust somebody in politics, and to a large degree, whether or not you trust somebody in your personal life, or you let your kids stay with them, or whether you'd like to have a beer with them. The request today is from Jim, and Jim writes, hey asshole, if you could make a YouTube video on your thoughts and opinions about George Soros, that would be great. I hear he's evil, etc., but from what I've seen, he comes across as a very intelligent, interesting person, though I don't know much about him. I would appreciate your thoughts. Thank you. And I said, well, what do you mean? Like, do you want me to just go study George Soros? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, to just study him, figure out everything about his life, that's going to cost like at least $200 because I have to research him for like an hour and a half. And then I'd have to put together the video and be lengthy. And I say, we could do a Clarey Test, which is much more quick and dirty and cheap. He says, yeah, let's do that. So that's what we decided to do. So, George, now, the 4-question test. Do you come from wealth? If you come from a rich family, you get a point. And you don't want to score points on this test. 2, what did you major in? And you do not want to major in stupid shit because that's a declaration to the world that you're a lazy fuck and you don't mind parasiting off of the rest of it. And that's what liberal arts majors are. It's no more complicated. They don't care about the children. They don't want to become artists. They're lazy fucks, and that they tell you they're evil when they say, I want to major in child psychology. And so you're like, you're a lazy fuck, all right. And there's some leeway, like if you're a hardcore engineer, you get 0 points. If you're finance, half a point, quarter point, depends. And then the 3rd question is, do you have private sector experience? For example, Barack Obama has no private sector experience. GW has no private sector experience. You'd be amazed how many of the politicians in our world, both Democrat and Republican, have no fucking real-world experience. So if you're a professor, academia, I'm a philanthropist, you're one of the Kennedys, you get a point there. Otherwise, if you have real work, you work the coal mines, you work security, you pump gas, you flip burgers, you're a real normal American, actually supports himself or herself, you don't get a point, which is good. Then the 4th question is, what are you doing now? Are you, well, I was going to say you're a retired lazy fuck, but I mean, you could have built up the massive fortune. Are you in politics? Are you in government? Are you in a nonprofit? What are you doing now? Are you just basically advocating the further theft and stealing and parasitism off of the rest of society? So, we got old George Soros here. Dude's 86. Let's go to early life and find out about his parents. Wikipedia, I'm going to predict this. Wikipedia always likes to tell you the ethnicity of the people's parents. Like, oh, he was a German Jewish immigrant from, Budapest. Soros was born in Budapest in the Kingdom of Hungary to a well-to-do, non-observant Jewish family who, like many upper-middle-class Hungarian Jews at the time, were uncomfortable with their roots. Okay, so he, comes from a rich family. There's a point against him. Education. Now, with older people, this is a little bit of a problem because in the olden days, people were smarter. They didn't just rush off to college because their parents told them to. Especially when the labor market was screaming at you with articles about kids graduating from college with a ton of student debts and no fucking job at the end of it. But millennials are like, so, but in the olden days, they didn't go to, not everyone went to college. So if you don't go to college, you still get 0 points. That's better because then you presumably would be working in a real field. So, he became a student at the London School of Economics, even though I minored in it, and I am an economist. It is a worthless profession. Did he go into engineering, porter, waiter? Soros worked as a railway porter, and as a waiter, he received $40 from a Quaker charity, or pounds. So he does have some private sector experience. That will count towards his favor. I worked a variety of jobs. I ended up selling fancy goods on the Seaside Souvenir Shop, and I thought that's not really what I was cut to do, so I wrote to every managing director in every merchant bank in London. Got just 1 or 2 replies, and eventually that's how I got my job at the merchant bank. Okay, banking, that's one of those gray areas, so we'll come back to that. But we did find out in 1951, George Soros earned a Bachelor of Science in Philosophy and a Master's of Science in philosophy in 1954, both at the London School. So worthless degree. So he comes from rich parents and he has a worthless degree. Normally at this point, I would be condemning already. Say, okay, you're a rich, lazy, spoiled, trust fund baby fuck, and you majored in worthless shit. But this is so long ago. Going to college was a little bit, any degree was a good degree back then. But I still am going to award him a full point, and I still am going to say he was a lazy fuck that never intended to work. But then he did work real jobs. So he has real-world private sector experience. And sometimes this happens. Sometimes the spoiled brat, lazy suburbanite cunts and assholes who come from rich families, they actually work real jobs. It's rare. It's rare. It does happen, and it looks like George Soros is one of those people. Business career. After graduating, Soros found it difficult to get work and settled for a job as a traveling salesman for fancy good wholesaler retail. Okay, so he's got real-world experience. 0 points for that. Awesome. He described this period as a low point in my life, probably because he found working a real job beneath him. I wrote letters to a number of merchant banks. Many of these ignored him, and others humiliated him in the interviews. Welcome to the real world, George. He credits his acceptance at Singer and Friedlander to the fact that the managing director was a fellow Hungarian. Nepotism and tribalism. So he worked at a bank, continued working at banks, securities companies, vice president at Onhold and Bleichroder, set up a double eagle hedge fund, and he starts going into entrepreneurship, Soros Management Fund. Currently speculation. He's born as recognizing a favorable position of the United Kingdom for Soros, the rate at which the bank in the United Kingdom. So here's the deal. I don't like the fact he worked at a bank. I don't like the fact he got by through nepotism and corruption and connections. But he did slave away and work real jobs. It didn't seem like his parents were bailing him out. So, does he have real-world private sector experience? Yes, he does, and I'm going to overlook the banking thing because he had hustle and he got into it. Is he currently working in the real world? Yes, he is. He's not going for government and all that. Now, a lot of you may say that he is working in a nonprofit, where he's trying to fund different socialist programs. But in all honesty, yeah, the vast majority of his experience and what he's currently doing now is private sector. So he scores a solid 2. Not the worst, not the best, but is this someone that, I would maybe have a beer with him. I know I definitely disagree with his politics. I don't like the connections and the fact that he came from wealthy families. I just don't trust people that come from wealthy families. It's almost as bad as coming from a single parent household, almost being like raised by a single mom. Like there's a good statistical chance you'll run into crime, have mental problems, and just do horrible with women if you're raised under a single mother. Just as you're gonna be untrustworthy, I don't like you, you're gonna think you're better than everybody else if you come from a wealthy family. Now, there's no guarantee, it's not 100% correlation, but it's damn well near 80 to 90%. So anyway, kind of average score. Given his prominence in the public world, yeah, that's actually a pretty good score. Just I still, knowing what I know about him, what he's done, and how I'd have a beer with him, but it'd be one of them long-ass tables he probably owns in one of his mansions. He'd sit way the fuck down there, I'd sit way the fuck down there, and I'd be like Han Solo with the blaster on my side. And who would shoot first would be the question. Alright, best of luck to all of you. Toodles.